sim racers from around the globe, honoring a revolutionary era of open-wheel racing. With a beast not easily tamed, roaring around legendary circuits at breakneck speed. When engineers and drivers push boundaries, sometimes too far. When heroes muscled roaring beast wheel to wheel around the hallowed grounds. A time when the only driver aids were his 2 feet. Perfect combination of man, machine, and speed. Experience the competition and the glory of the early 80s IndyCar action. The Lionheart Retro Series, presented by Sim Experience, starts now.
After a majestic race at the Magic Mile, the Lionheart Retro Series, presented by Sim Experience, has whisked away from the Granite State to the cornfields of Iowa for the second of its 3 straight short track events. One of the drivers with sky-high confidence is Matt Taylor. The Avatar Auto Racing driver has won 2 races in a row, growing his advantage in the championship fight. Now, the big question is, can he keep it up? At the fastest short track on the planet? Let's find out. This is the Fisch Motors Iowa 150, presented by Midwest Simulations, live from iRacing's virtual Iowa Speedway. Hello everyone, and welcome to RaceSpotTV and ESTV's coverage of the Lionheart Racing Series, powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows for all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com. Don't forget to use the promo code LionHRT15 for 15% off orders. My name is Justin Prince. Alongside me is Dylan Coyle for today's coverage with Juna Kankipati in the producer's seat. TV cameras are provided by Istvan Bello and TrackCams22.com. You can follow along with live time and scoring thanks to our partners at ATVO to follow along with your favorite team and drivers in the real and virtual worlds of motorsports. Let's dive into our HyperX pre-race show as we have made our way to Iowa. It's a fan favorite track, Dylan, and tonight it's expected to be a super fast track, with this being a critical part of the schedule.
You know, we were just talking about a pre-race, doing the math, and if we had a record number of cautions, aka 0 cautions, this race could be over in as little as an hour. We're going with the over on that one because there's bound to be a lot of comeuppance here with close racing, fast racing. I mean, these cars are going to be battling with average lap speeds of around 164 miles per hour. It's going to be a great show tonight, Justin.
It'll be a true challenge of skill, especially with those speeds being carried around the racetrack. Multiple different lines that can come into play when it comes to Iowa Speedway. Of course, this race sandwiched between New Hampshire Motor Speedway and Worldwide Technology Raceway, also known as Gateway. But for Matt Taylor, it's been a dominant past couple rounds for him. He's now got 513 points on the season in our Sim Experience driver standings over Mike Rasmus and Aaron Morgan, your top 3. It's been competitive so far, Dylan, but the past couple races, Matt Taylor's turned it up a notch.
He's absolutely turned it up a notch, and look at that R right next to his name. He's a rookie, and he is right now in the driver's seat of this championship. Mike Rasmus, Aaron Morgan doing some great things as well. They are tied. I mean, you're looking at pretty much a 3-horse race at this point in the season.
It's been very competitive so far, and don't forget about drivers like Chris Reagan and Sage Karam, who have also showed good speed inside that top 5, and a few other rookies. David Sirwa and Michael O'Brien are also amongst the top 7 in the point standings. Let's talk about a little bit with these rookies, the butt kicker rookie standings. Matt Taylor, of course, at the top of the standings with the overall points lead as well. Sirwa and O'Brien looking very tight amongst their group. But Chris Fowler was among the contenders last time out. Nick DeGroot has also showed great speed in the rookie class this season, Dylan.
Yeah, he absolutely has. You know, so many rookies came into this series this season, and that was the thing that always intrigued me about what would happen once we did go a green flag racing all the way back months ago. And these rookies have not disappointed whatsoever. You've got so many of them right at that point where 300 points and above, I mean, that's a very solid season so far. And you're seeing so many of them do just that. Of course, Taylor has been the class of them all, though.
Absolutely, especially with those back-to-back victories that we discussed a little bit. But these competitors are continuing their competitiveness with your team standings. It's presented by HyperX, with Avatar Auto Racing really picking up the pace the past few rounds as a result of Taylor's victories and some of his fellow teammates coming close to victory as well in the Retro Series. They have 1,450 points. That's over Graphics, LC Motorsports, and Lavoie Motorsport rounding up the top 3. Also in the 1,000 mark, Aerolex Racing.
Yep, all of these teams have been competing for second, pretty much, because Avatar Auto Racing has been lights out all season. It's very similar in the case of a driver, say Matt Taylor, who you see that big gap from first to second and everyone is infighting from there on back. It's very similar in the team standings. Nice to see, though, that there is still a lot of competition left. But I think when we do throw the checkered flag on the season, Avatar will still be on top.
We'll have to see if they can hold on through the next few races indeed. Never know when it comes to the momentum swings here in this series. But these drivers are getting ready. We're racing Iowa Speedways. We take a look at our series details presented by Minus 273. Minus 273 is the premier name in karting gloves. Swing gloves are super lightweight and durable, made of breathable spandex. Whether you're a kart or sim racer, Minus 273 gives you the control to reach victory lane. For more information on Minus 273's full line of gloves and apparel, visit minus273.biz. Don't forget to also use Minus 273 LHRS15 for 15% off orders. And of course, it's been a very competitive campaign so far, the 7th year. Series competition, Season 5 for the Lionheart Retro Series. These custom fixed setups are going to be put to the test tonight, especially with the cooler temperatures under the lights, meaning the passing could be difficult, but it's also going to be difficult to make sure you don't slam your way into the wall.
Well, Iowa is basically a faster Richmond, and I don't mean that lightly. Richmond and Iowa, they look similar, but they handle so differently. I think Iowa, in this case, is going to put on a really good show because of that speed. The banking's a little bit higher, but that wall, especially on the backstretch, comes up so quickly, and it can lead to some interesting maneuvering.
Absolutely, and keep in mind, one thing to note, Craig Forsyth, in practice at the moment, has a lap time 1/100th of a second quicker than the qualifying record, which is a 19.375, held by Michael Goodman from Season 1. Of course, this is the 5th trip to the fastest short track on the planet. 4 races, 4 different winners, and it should be worth noting, leading laps here is no guarantee of victory. The driver that has led the most laps has never won here at this racetrack, and that is Goodman with 205 laps led to that mark. And keep in mind, you mentioned how quick it could be if it stays clean. Well, the fewest cautions in the past, Dylan, has been 4. The max came in 7th. There has been a trend where there's been less and less cautions, though, as the seasons have gone by.
You know, if we do have fewer cautions than 4, I will be shocked. You know what? It's going to be a lot. We've seen these drivers race very aggressively in the past few races, the past few weeks. So I feel like there's going to be a lot of infighting, like I was saying not too long ago. I will say the most cautions being 7 is surprising at that point. It's not much variance there.
Keep in mind, the names on that list of winners in the past 2 are Tony Shalwin, Adam Blocker, Chris Lanini, and Sage Karam. Some very talented competitors have won here in the past. The biggest margin of victory under green, 1.2 seconds. Closest margin, 0.2240 seconds here at Iowa Speedway. But of course, the big news coming from the real world too is Iowa Speedway coming back to the NTT IndyCar Series scheduled for a real-world doubleheader in 2022, Dylan.
You see, I knew that it was rumored it was coming back to the schedule. Has that been made official? Because that is fantastic news for this track, especially with having a doubleheader. It's always nice to see just series working together. And I know Iowa owned by a NASCAR group, and you know what? It's nice to see them working on this.
It was confirmed earlier today, 11 hours ago, by NTT IndyCar Series directly, that they would be returning to this track in late July. And of course, in the real world, IndyCar has put on some great shows here in the past at Iowa Speedway. Strategy has been critical, and it could be critical tonight for the Retro Series as well. But our drivers are all set to go for qualifying. 5 minutes, 2 solo qualifying laps. 26 drivers have made their way out to Newton, Iowa for tonight's action. And one of the main talking points, Dylan, from a couple of the drivers I spoke to has been track position, track position, track position. It can be tough to pass. That could put a lot of emphasis on qualifying tonight.
Whenever you attempt to pass on this track, it's by a move that was set up 2 laps previously, because you're really going to need to make that move down, maybe going high into turn 1, coming down and swooping low into turn 2, maybe trying to get the inside line in 3, come out in 4 side by side, and so on. You see how that works. This is going to be extremely difficult for drivers who are qualifying in the back of the pack to make moves without some very fast pit stops. We already see sometimes up on the board. That's not going to be fast. Obviously, this is they're just trying to lay down some lap times.
And sees how some of these drivers are trying to cut the apron a little bit to get as quick of a time on the board as they can. Chris Fowler actually put up a 19.550 with that attempt, utilizing that apron just a few tenths of a second from the series qualifying record. DJ Clark, now you see on screen, he's looking to showcase some speed, currently 9th on the board in the 20-second bracket.
I think we're going to see some really fast speeds coming from Craig Forsyth, like we were talking about in the pre-race show, or actually before the pre-race show. Forsyth is 1/100ths faster in practice than the all-time qualifying time here at this track. 3 minutes to go in qualifying. Mike Rasmussen, a championship contender. Let's see what he's able to do.
It's going to be very critical, because to emphasize what one of the drivers told me in particular, Michael O'Brien, he thinks strategy and track position will be everything. Can Rasmussen get that track position is going to be critical first time around. The 20.2, it seems the trend is the second lap is the quicker lap, especially with them going just about flat out around Iowa.
I don't think that's a surprise either. They're going to need to get that pressure up and put it all on the line. Sometimes you just want to get that first lap as an installation lap to let everything start its workings in lap 2.
Drivers who have not set times yet on the circuit: Craig Forsyth, Chris Reagan, Richie Hearn, I should say, Dustin Wardlow, Michael O'Brien, David Rodriguez in his second start of the season, and Matt Taylor. Here is Rodriguez in particular. Wardlow making their way around the racetrack. Of course, Wardlow's been having some interesting moments when it comes to Lionheart competition the past few races across the various sanctioning bodies. The Candyman looks to try and get higher up on the board from 21st.
We still haven't seen Forsyth out yet. Let's see what Wardlow is able to do. Best time is still 23.85, and now it goes to 19.577. I didn't see an update really right there, but it's a fairly good lap right there for him.
And here is one of the drivers we're keeping an eye on. Matt Taylor, Craig Forsyth are both on the racetrack, and for Taylor, he's talked about wanting to keep this car clean. Survival is something he emphasized towards me before today's race. I have to see if he'll be able to keep that in mind. He's using the top line, Dylan, it seems, though, to build up a lot of momentum for the second lap.
Wow, he's going to get a lot of speed. Look how fast he is going around turn 1 and 2. Down the back stretch, 10 seconds at the midpoint. It's pretty even with what we've seen so far, but as he comes off turn 4, he cuts all the way down to the apron. This is going to be a fast time. What is it?
The 19.582, that gets him right in front of Mike Rasmus's championship rival. Only one other driver is currently on the circuit for qualifying. That's Craig Forsyth. He's right now on his second lap. Again, to emphasize, he had the fastest time in practice. That was quicker than the qualifying record. Can he find his way into the record books or find that similar speed? No apron use this time. It's a 19.8, not even close to what he did in practice.
That is surprising indeed, Justin. I mean, no one even came close to getting a very, very fast time in qualifying compared to what we were seeing in practice. Maybe that was because of the draft.
And now it's going to be interesting how the race fares out. Some big names going to be in the heart of the pack. But it's time to take a look at your starting grid for tonight's Lionheart Retro Series action from Iowa. Drivers making the way to the starting grid for the Fisch Motorsports Iowa 150 presented by Midwest Simulations. And it's David Sirois who is on the pole today with the 19.516. Mike Rigney starts on the outside front row with Chris Fowler, and David Rodriguez with a much better qualifying performance to his debut. How about a top 4 in his second start of the season? Michael O'Brien and Dustin Wardlow round out the top 6 separation, 6/100ths of a second. Championship rivals Matt Taylor, Mike Rasmus, and Aaron Morgan highlight positions 7 through 9, with George Anzotto in 10th. Paul Jenkins is in 11th with Nick DeGroot in the middle of the pack in 12th. Isaac Snyder, the independent, starts 13th with Chris Lanini, 14th. Robert Mikes starts in 15th spot with Caleb Bensey in 16th. Trevor Malone starts 17th in his Steel Machine with DJ Clark saying hello from 18th. Alex Guillon starts in 19th with Ariel Lannis in 20th position. Danny Roberts and Cody Wenson, 21st, 22nd. Top 24 rounded out with Ron Hacker and Craig Forsyth. The rest of your field did not set times. Chris Reagan, Richie Hearn, the final 2 drivers in your 26-car starting lineup from the virtual Iowa Speedway. As these cars continue to make their way towards your starting grid, a very intriguing race on hand tonight, Dylan. How are you feeling? What are your keys to victory tonight?
Well, keys to victory. Keep it clean, keep the nose clean. There's going to be a lot of close action here, especially in the first few laps off the start of the race. That's going to be dangerous. These drivers need to traverse it in good ways.
Going to be very critical as we take a look at your featured onboard cameras for tonight. Driving the Fisch Motorsports onboard camera, it's Ron Hacker. Fisch Motorsports is your source for new Fords and used cars in Walnut, Illinois. Visit FischMotorsports.com. With the HyperX on board, it's Matt Taylor. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to game. We'll take a look at your featured cameras later on throughout the evening. These cars are already making their way through turns 3 and 4 behind the iRacing pace truck, and this is going to be exciting. One more pace lap for our drivers here. Your final thoughts, Dylan, before we get rolling from Iowa.
The other idea that I am having here with Iowa is, again, make sure you get those moves lined up 2 laps early. You'll want to make sure that you're not making any brash moves. If you see a hole, go for it, but you need to really be methodical about making passes here at this track.
Take an opportunity to look at those other cameras we're referring to, by the way, the Graphics Esports onboard camera. Chris Lanini has it this evening. Graphics Esports, world-class design from the real world to virtual. Visit GraphicsEsports.com. And Chris Fowler has the Chris Fowler Racing onboard camera. Chris Fowler on his sim racing journey through his live streams. Visit Fowler Racing on Twitch. All the drivers just about set to go for this year's running of the Fisch Motorsports Iowa 150 presented by Midwest Simulations. Competition, commitment, excitement. This is Lionheart, and this is the start of the 5th trip to Iowa Speedway for the Retro Series. Green flag is out. We're underway. A great launch up in the front for Rodriguez, nearly taking it 3 wide into the first corner. The rest of the field keeping it side by side, multiple rows deep to the back. Sirwa leads the first lap around Mike Rigney. David Rodriguez already battling a bit for second. Chris Fowler shuffled to fourth off the launch. A couple drivers gained 2 positions. Other than that, status quo. Bottom and middle lines being utilized by majority of the pack so far. What from George Anzaldo now for the 8th position, trying to gain a couple positions here, Dylan. Already a great start for him, up 2 positions. He's utilizing that second to third line, along with the bumps in turn 1 and 2.
So, early on in this race, these drivers are utilizing, like you said, those 2 grooves, but whenever they come back up into the front stretch to the back stretch, they are getting back to one line. That can be troublesome for a driver that is still side by side.
That's why some of the drivers have talked about how difficult it could be to try and pass with how you drive this racetrack. Mike Rasmus and Michael O'Brien fighting side by side. This again for the battle for 6th position for the time being. You can tell Rasmus just that little bit quicker though along the yellow line, able to clear on by, take away that spot from O'Brien.
That's definitely a big move so far. It's going to be even more important to get these moves done at the front of the pack as everyone is starting to thin out. I mean, we're already on lap 6 of 172, and that only took us 2 minutes.
Meanwhile, David Sirwa is already pulled away by almost half a second from Mike Rigney with the clean air. They're running 19.6s. Quickest laps, in fact, so far, and climbing. With the 19.610 that time by the stripe. And that separation is to be expected a little bit with Iowa, as it should be emphasized. O'Brien told me before tonight's race, passes will be very tricky, maybe some of the most difficult all season. Even low fuel can make a little bit of a difference in terms of the pace, but not too much of a difference. But the rubbering of the track is going to be very critical later on.
Fastest lap put down by Chris Fowler with a 19.58. I think those speeds are going to continue to improve. The race record we saw was a 19.1, and that's when the draft really comes into effect.
So if you're one of the drivers who are in the heart of the hornet's nest, as in our fastest lap put in a 19.57, put up by David Sirwa, how do you try and get yourself through the pack knowing this is going to be a tough track to get yourself through said pack? And this is a race where there's not many pit stops to be expected compared to some of our events expected to be a 2-stopper.
You show patience. I mean, that's all you really can do, because when you are qualifying at this track, it's going to be very difficult. You know, I don't like to compare this one-to-one, but it is sort of similar to a track like Monaco, where it's tough to pass at Formula One. It's tough to pass here. It's not impossible, but every move is going to take a bunch of laps to make it stick and make it work. We're watching on board with Nick DeGroot. Just watch the battle right in front of him, Matt Taylor, George Anzaldo. I mean, these two are going to go at it. You go up high, and it looks like the man on the outside is going to get the position. And that will continue this battle for just a little bit. Going back out to the outside, trying to get the momentum. I mean, this is pretty much what it's going to look like to make a pass here.
Yeah, especially since, if you think about it this way, stock cars, you can utilize that second and third line to be able to defend pinch driver on down. We're seeing the exact same thing from some of these competitors. The bottom can work, though, if you've got confidence and are able to force a little bit of a mistake from the car up top. As you see Aaron Morgan utilizing that middle line. Chris Lanini right on behind, now tucks back into line down the front stretch.
These sounds are always beautiful to hear, but you can hear the throttle. That's a little bit up high, but he's going to get a good run on Morgan here. It's always so scary when you get all the way back up to the safer barrier. It comes up really quickly here.
Yeah, this is such a difficult track, but it's also a rhythm track where, when you think about it this way, Dylan, it can take several laps to try and set up a pass. Be interesting how things fare out for these drivers tonight. One of the drivers you see on screen is your driver profile for tonight, presented by Sim Experience. It's Chris Lanini, who has 57 starts in the Retro Series, 22 top 10 finishes, 6 top 5s, 1 victory, and it just so happens, Dylan, to be here at Iowa. That's his best finish in this series, of course, so he does have experience winning here at this track. Currently 12th.
Experience only matters, though, when you're at the late stages of this race or when you're trying to get through on smart maneuvers. When you know the track, you're able to utilize all the facets of it to make a move. It's just going to be really hard, especially if we see long stretches of green, to make up those positions currently in 12th, like you said.
Keep in mind, the estimated fuel window will be around 70 laps for tonight. And for the Lavoie Motorsport machine, absolute domination early going, already near 20 laps in. He has continued to pull away, now 0.8 of a second the gap to the rest of the pack.
I mean, just look at that gap that is forming from first, second, third. It's going to continue doing this, but like we're starting to see, he's going to have a lot of traffic soon.
Yeah, already 12 seconds behind the tail of the field. That's the current pace compared to the back of the field, where it's up to 0.4 for some of these drivers from the front of the grid to the rear of the field. 26 drivers currently separated by 12 seconds around this circuit. The interesting thing when it comes to David Sirois as well is, prior to the past couple races, he did not have any lead laps on the season. Then Twin Ring Motegi happened, where he still came away with a third place finish in one of the, how do I put this, most wild, insane races I've ever seen on the iRacing service. While 32 laps led at New Hampshire. He's on his string of top fives, 3 straight.
It's a huge thing for him. And you know what? When you're able to put good results together, that only makes you better as a driver. It puts you, we're talking about Iowa being a rhythm track, but just putting together good finishes gets you in a rhythm. All of a sudden, things just start going your way. You start seeing things in a better light, and it makes you a better driver.
Been a very stellar performance indeed. He's nearly broken away 1 second from Mike Rigney. Mike Rigney has pulled away more than a second from David Rodriguez. Rodriguez has a grouping of Wardlow and Fowler. And then it's a big gaggle, about 1 more second back from 5th, led by Rasmus, O'Brien, and Zoldo. Amongst those competitors, that is the next train. We're seeing now forming up a little bit with some separation. So they are starting to spread out with the effects of the aero wash potentially around this racetrack. But that's going to change once that traffic comes into play, absolutely. How difficult do you think it's going to be to try pass by the traffic with everyone so bunched up?
It's going to start to bunch drivers that are currently second, third, fourth. It's going to put Rigney, Rodriguez, Wardlow, Fowler. They're all going to come back into the picture, but it's still going to be a matter of trying to get passes made. I mean, right now, this is currently, Justin, a parade, right? This is currently, we're just watching them just fight themselves, fight the air. And you know what? That's okay for now. Usually the allure of short track racing to me is when you have to deal with traffic, seeing how the leader is able to deal with that. And David Sirois, well, he will have to deal with it very soon.
Look right now at Matt Taylor on your screen as he is among the drivers who are still inside the top 10. It's not been the easiest race for Taylor so far. It's a -2 in his race so far. His goal tonight, try and get the top 5 because he knew this stretch of races, Dylan, was going to be so critical. To emphasize it, 3 straight short tracks. We're in the midst of that stretch right now where attrition can come into play. For some, this may be their potential for drops.
Yep, absolutely. And by the way, not to take the topic off of that real quick, I just want to ask you, Iowa is one of the best, in my opinion, short tracks for that kind of racing where it's always going to come into the traffic, especially as the leader. What other tracks do you feel like are good for IndyCar racing, for open wheel racing, when it comes to dealing with traffic? I think Phoenix, and this might be controversial, Phoenix is fun to watch when IndyCar was going there because of the dealings with traffic. I'm not sure what your thoughts are with that.
Well, when it comes to Lionheart and its competitions too, traffic was so big because you'd have a leader in some series indeed break away by a couple seconds, but once you reach the traffic, that's where the real fight begins and the real challenge starts, because that is the equalization of the rest of the cars that have the dirty air from you. So I think it's an intriguing topic that can come into play absolutely for tonight. Once that 99 gets within reach, it's to where David Sirwell's gap is starting to reduce, in fact, and he hasn't even reached said traffic yet. But in regards to our traffic tracks, one of the first that comes to mind at the top of my head might be Worldwide Technology Raceway, our next stop, where sometimes traffic can be so critical there as well.
That's a great point. I think it's, Worldwide Technology is a unique track because of how long the straights are. When you have long straights like that, it's going to allow runs, which is different than a track like Iowa, when most of the track really is in the corners. Worldwide Technology, a lot of the track is on the straight. So just different characteristics, and that's why I love the schedule that Lionheart Retro Series is running on this season.
Take a look at some of your biggest movers and shakers so far. The biggest movers, well, it's been difficult if you start into the back of the field. +3 has been the biggest mover so far in this race. Most spots lost, -3. Ron Hacker, along with Paul Jenkins, everyone else -2 or -1 in that regard. But to emphasize this, the pit entry is going to be very intriguing, I think, Dylan. Once we get to that window, we're already halfway through the first fuel stint in what's been a clean race so far from Iowa Speedway. And this is a very tricky pit lane to enter, because if you overrun that pit entry, you're going to potentially run into the barrels.
Yeah, and if you do overrun it, well, that's race over, and then a caution would come out, which would stack the field up a little bit more, and then we'd get to see them all stacked up together again.
Some of the drivers emphasize because the speed you can carry into the corner for the entry. Expect drivers to potentially push a little bit too hard on that. In fact, as well, pit exit is also something to think about too, with the amount of marbles here that can build up. It can be loose on that exit. I've seen several times in multiple different types of cars, Dylan, at Iowa, people just loop it off the exit.
Yeah, and I think that's also a combination of cold tires. You know, this is a close little fight we've got on track right here. Finally, we've got some action. Battle for 7th. Again, Iowa is such an odd track just because of how intriguing it is when dealing with traffic. You can't really make passes here. By the way, just need to make a note of it. David Sirwell, well, he's about to come up to some lap traffic.
This is going to be the test that we were talking about. It's 0.7 of a second, the gap between him and Rigney. David Rodriguez is chipping away at that deficit that he had. That was more than a second. Dustin Wardlow, Chris Fowler, Mike Rasmus also doing the same. The rest of the field more than 5 to 6 seconds behind. So now, this is the true test to see how much that aero wash comes into play. How about a 1/10 of a second quicker for Rodriguez and Wardlow the previous time by? Rigney picking up nearly 2/10 this time by.
Yeah, and this is going to continue to be a factor in this race. And our producer, Arjuna Kenkipati, he is relaying to us the question, how nice does traffic want to be? And that's a great question, because it can come into play depending on if they just get out of the way. But especially if you're seeing a battle, a car not wanting to let up, it's going to lead to drivers like Mike Rigney being able to catch up to the drivers in front. Now that difference is just around 4.5 tenths. Now back up to 5 tenths. You see it continuing to go down to 4 tenths.
Can Rigney close up the full gap, in your opinion, though? That's the tough part.
I don't think so. It's going to be very difficult to do here.
See if that rings true. He did lose a 1/10 when he got through that last corner. He is picking up time on corner entry, then losing it on corner exit. Trying to follow wheel to wheel. That separation still now 0.5 second. We are quickly approaching that first pit stop window. And keep in mind, some of these drivers are going to be battling for position up in front of these race leaders. You talked about how nice they want to play. Where do you try and move if you're some of these leaders? If you want to be that nice driver Or, in turn, where do you go if you're the leader to try and battle with them, since some of them might want to keep that lead lap, or lead lap, rather?
You know what? I don't think he'd be nice. I really don't. I mean, you're dealing with your own issues, and if you get behind these leaders right now, you're going to struggle to catch up to the next driver in your, in basically your line of sight. There's not much you can do. This is just a difficult track for passing.
You have to say it's a fan favorite, though, I will say, because of the racing in the various disciplines, too, because it's a track that I've heard described as a short track that's similar to Richmond that drives like a half mile, almost. And you can kind of see that in some of the various races that come to Iowa Speedway. Yes, the location's an interesting one for sure, but it's a track people like to see racing at for a reason.
Right. It leads to a lot of aggressive strategy sometimes, and you know, when we don't, I would be very interested if we saw the fuel tanks restricted somewhat here, because if they were, we'd see maybe 3-4 stop strategies here. Could you imagine the madness that would come from that?
Believe it or not, there's actually a 28% fuel cap already in terms of tonight. It's still a two-stopper in that regard.
And you know what? That's fair to say. I always know that there is that fuel cap. It always feels like it's what it should be, normally, even without the fuel cap here. These cars can handle a lot of gasoline.
And one of the most important things to emphasize is you talked a little bit about full tires. Keep in mind, the strategy for a lot of drivers is don't take tires, because the quicker you go is the longer some of the stints can come into play as well on those said tires. In some cases, taking tires can cost you a lot of time on the racetrack. We've seen in the past in this series.
Yes, and I would expect these drivers not to take tires on any stops here. You know, the weird thing that we have heard multiple times throughout the races in this series is that having worn tires actually makes you faster.
Just the nature of the car, you have to think, Dylan.
It's so true. It is the nature of this car.
Give a shout out to David Rodriguez, who worked his way into this series throughout various practices and has now found himself in the Retro Series roster. We mentioned he made a start in New Hampshire, where he was among the top 10 starters who finished in the 20th in that running order for the RSR Esport machine. It's been an impressive second race in this series. Very committed, it seems. He's one of the quickest cars of the track, too.
Yeah, he was very quick last time out, and seeing what he's able to do here is fairly impressive. You know, we were talking about it earlier. He almost took it 3 wide at the start because it really was a weird start from Sirois. He went to the outside, Rodriguez did, and almost made it 3 and a 1, but pulled back, did get a spot from it.
See if he was able to close up the gap even more so. He has closed in a few tenths of a second. Battle for the race lead is on, meanwhile, because that has compressed down to around 0.2 of a second with the traffic. Right now, David Sirwall's just struggling just that little bit right now with the dirty window, as we're already approaching 10 laps to the pit window.
That is insane. Hey, we might see a very quick race here. Already about to start that 60th lap. We're well past the 33%, the 1/3 of the way mark.
Now here becomes the question, how powerful do you think the undercut could be? Because if Rickney gets that undercut, he might be able to try and jump him, you have to think.
Well, that is a good question here. The passes are going to be made during the pit stops, and Rigney has cut that angle, that lead down so much that it's really going to be minuscule things here in this pit stop.
So what would you do if you're amongst this top 3 with how close it is, knowing this could be critical to try and jump David Sirwall and take over that race lead with how tricky this race has been tonight?
Well, I try the undercut. There's no point in just staying in the draft right here, or the dirty air, I should say, and it would hurt the drivers here. So why not go for the undercut and try to get something done?
Already changing up their lines in this 172-lap race. I have noticed now because they are now within 1 second of Chris Reagan up in front of them, especially in turns 3 and 4. Watch right here. Sirwa prefers the bottom. Regni trying to find some clean air, preferring the middle line as Sirwa nearly drives into the fence.
Uh-oh.
Could have been tough right there. Still able to hold on for the time being, though, as he still prefers the shorter distance around.
Well, maybe don't worry about an undercut right now if you can get the position here. Again, Sirwa has to really get out of the throttle. Rigney is now putting on the pressure, and this is going to allow David Rodriguez to get back into this lead battle.
Top 4 all separated by 1 second. Dustin Wardlow is also reeling in this battle amongst your top competitors on the racetrack. Right before the first pit stop window, Sirwa again a bit slowed down off of turn 4. And Rigney is electing to stay behind him, it looks like, for the time being. A little bit of a lift there down the front stretch.
Oh, but again, Rigney is going so quickly right now. As long as he gets that clean air at top, I think he's going to really be able to reel him in and eventually get by. But is it going to happen before he goes into the pits?
That's going to be the big question mark for these drivers. Rodriguez is still within 6/10. Wardlow is now within 8/10. Chris Fowler has closed up 3/10 the past couple laps. With how tight this is all going to become now on lap number 68. And again, to emphasize this track was fairly green when we started off, Dylan, in terms of the rubber buildup. I'm curious how the rubber buildup is going to affect the second half of this race, too.
Absolutely. And now we obviously have clear lines established by all these drivers. It's really either the lowest line to the track, maybe a little bit outside, so maybe a half car length up, or middle and getting a big run.
Right now, Rigney's been trying to build up those big runs from that middle line for the past few laps. It hasn't quite worked yet, though. And some signals now coming in this time. David Sirwa will open the pit stop window. Chris Lanini has also signaled he plans to come in, as well as DJ Clark. So, David Sirwa will sacrifice the race lead right on lap 70.
Does a really nice job of getting down pit road. Nothing bad for Sirwa.
And the rest of the drivers starting to signal they plan to come in. Malone, Morgan, Taylor, Mikes, Rasmus, all among the drivers who have signified they plan to come in. And keep in mind, this could be a bit of a danger zone for Sirwa. If a caution comes out with how tough this pit entry and exit can be, that may really put a snap in his strategy.
It's also what happens with short track racing. I remember there was a race at Bristol Motor Speedway in the NASCAR Cup Series last year where pretty much 6 drivers were on the lead lap because a caution came out with everyone in the middle of a pit cycle. Uh-oh! Right in front of Sirwa. Caution is out.
Oh. And this whole entire field just has been flipped upside down. We're under caution for the first time tonight. My goodness.
Wow. We'll catch a replay here. Sirwa, Anzaldo, these drivers are going to now be a lap down. They'll get the wave around most likely. Wenson just completely lost it trying to come down pit road. Just said over the radio, sorry guys, cannot believe I just did that. Do not know what happened. Watch the view from Anzaldo here. All right, that could have been a lot scarier. Would I'd love to see what happened though on I'm trying to see exactly. Who was right in front? I think it was Sirwa who had the best view of what happened.
Well, this is all going to be intriguing now because timing and scoring is correct. There may have been only a few drivers in the lead lap. There's David Sirwa driving right on by Wenson. And he might be one of the drivers 1 lap down. So it's Forsyth, Hearn, Reagan, all coming down this time. Everybody else has already pit.
Wow.
Well, we talked about strategy being so big, we just seen it.
So this isn't going to horribly hurt Sirois, but it's still going to be tough to make any positions up. Look at who is the top two, Forsyth and Richie Hearn.
Yeah, they were among the drivers who stretched it to 74 laps. Drivers are still trying to sort out where they are on the racetrack. It's now Chris Fowler who's cycled to the front. And he had already completed a pit stop a couple laps ago. O'Brien and Mike's peers are indeed 1 lap down. Everyone else is expected to cycle their way to the lead lap, so this will shuffle the front runners. But at the very least, keep much of the field on the lead lap. But here's the big part. The championship contenders, such as Taylor, are in 19th. Morgan is in 20th. Michael O'Brien, who had good track position, 23rd. Rodriguez in 16th. Rigney back in 12th. And Sirois is in 8th.
Wow. This caution is, I think, the broadcaster's curse.
Yes, indeed.
We love a little bit of broadcaster curses, don't we, Arjuna?
Well, it was you who put in the curse this time. Before the race, you thought, oh, we'll have a quick race if there's no cautions. Here comes the cautions.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I say Arjuna, but I have been the one that's been getting a lot more jinxes out there than Arjuna has lately. So maybe that title, that crown of Broadcaster's Curse should run a little bit over to me and be shared?
Maybe. Maybe, just maybe.
Lorenzo Bonder is still king, Arjuna says.
Either way, to reset what's going on for those just tuning in, the caution is out after Cody Wenson crashed into the inside wall through turns 3 and 4 trying to enter the pit lane. That ricocheted him up the racetrack, the outside line, to trigger the caution flag right in the middle of the pit stop window. Only a few drivers had not yet pit before that caution. Craig Forsyth, Richie Hearn, Chris Reagan. Chris Fowler stayed on the lead lap after his service. He's now cycled to the lead. Nick DeGroot, Isaac Snyder, Danny Roberts, David Sirois, and just about the entire field will have to take the wave around this time by to get on the lead lap. Michael O'Brien and Robert Mikes, who are approaching 5 laps now into their stints, were among some of the last drivers to pit. They are the only drivers pinned 1 lap down. Wenson is now out, as well as Ron Hacker, who parked it after he got lapped earlier in this race. So once again, this field has been flipped upside down a touch bit. It's still a 1-stopper on the gas to make it to the end. But now this is the break Chris Fowler, I think, may have been looking for, Dylan. He's come close a few times. He hasn't had the luck in some circumstances. And now the Chris Fowler racing machine, he's got the chance to lead from the point.
Yeah, he's going to get that chance to lead. And I think Fowler, Forsyth, and I'm so excited to see what Richie Hearn is able to do. I mean, Forsyth, Hearn, Reagan, 24th, 26th, 25th, respectively, is where they started this race. I don't think any of them thought that they'd be in the position that they are currently in.
Chris Reagan was nearly lapped by the race leaders before the window started, and now he's 4th. Things change quickly. Green flag is out, 94 to go, this time by, and a great launch from Chris Fowler. He pulls away by nearly half a second into turn 1.
Yeah, but again, that dirty air is going to come into play when it comes to Forsyth and Richie Hearn. Hearn taking a little peek down the inside, decides against it, and he is having his typical issues with the internet. Pops in, pops back out, and back in again.
Of course, Richie Hearn with a lot of real-world experience when it comes to racing in IndyCar action. So we take a look at the heart of the action, where many of your championship competitors are now having a battle. How about side-by-side with drivers like Mike Rasmus trying to gain some positions back, and quickly he's already back to 15.
Matt Taylor is really far back in the pack. It's 17th right now, so he's going to have to make up a lot of positions. Of course, for him, with Rasmus back there as well, it's not going to hurt too bad.
Yeah, this is not going to be how you want this race to play out, obviously, but on the bright side, your competitors are back there with you. It's just a matter of who can get on the right strategy, get themselves further up through the pack. As we look from Taylor, he's utilizing the outside line, trying to get to Mike Rasmus's right rear tire. Builds up the run. Here comes the pass down the front straightaway. Is this going to be enough to clear him behind the bottom? Rasmus gives him the space. Taylor can't get the pull, though, along the bumps. And that's kind of what you have to do. Try and build up a run off of turn 4. Get side by side and try and clear them by through 1 and 2 as these tires wear out.
Yeah. And look at that. They're all stretching out almost like an accordion right there with 3 separate lines. So we did see 2 lines being the main ones, but Matt Taylor is going to go way up high and see what he can get that move to go for him.
Roberts now going back side by side in single file, rather, all of Chris Fowler. He's already nearly pulled away by a full second. Again, for Fowler, 8th in the points entering tonight. It's been an up-and-down campaign, which has featured 5 DNFs, but 5 top 10s, where it's been a pattern of good finish, rough finish, good finish, rough finish, for much of the campaign, with a couple back-to-backs mixed in.
Look at this run. Look at this run. Trying to go down the inside. Is it going to work? Caution's out.
And it's from 4th position, Chris Reagan. The Purple Machine has brought out her second caution, and now it gets a bit intriguing. We're still 15 laps out from the estimated fuel window, but it's Reagan who tried to run the top all the way towards the wall in 1 and 2. Brings us under caution. See the replay. Those bumps can really bite you if you're that high up in 1 and 2. He nearly hit a car right about here, too.
Oh, how did he not get collected?
That's Isaac Snyder he nearly clipped.
It's remarkable that they did not come together there. Wow.
That was so close. By maybe a couple inches from potential contact. Snyder, of course, racing in multiple different series. Nearly had some bad luck there. Here's the slow motion replay. As you see, he was loose all the way before the apex.
He really was. And, oh, man, every time I see that, it almost makes me a little scared. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, those bumps up high are really going to be the reason why a lot of drivers don't try the high line.
Already past halfway with this caution flag as well. Under 84 laps to go this time by. It's Fowler, Forsyth, and Hearn your top 3 now. Sort of that loose moment for the Purple Machine. Reagan's been shuffled back to 8th, and yes, he's got damage to that wing too from it. So he did get a bit of that rear tire.
Well, what a find from our producer, Arjuna. He does have some damage. The left front wing there, you'll have to wonder, could that be helping his dirty air situation?
I don't think so.
You got to look at the bright side sometimes. You're probably right.
That isn't an easy fix, keep in mind, with the Lotus 79. So he's going to be dealing with that much of the race. We'll have to see how it impacts the speed as... Interesting call from some of the drivers towards the back just now. DJ Clark, David Rodriguez, Dustin Wardlow all have elected to come down and top off on fuel.
Get your replay here. Oh, the cone.
Oh, poor cone. Poor cone.
How'd the cone fall?
The wind.
Oh my goodness. That's such a shame. This is cone homicide at its finest.
I'm not sure what to really say on that. On the bright side, at least the blue cone isn't being carried around the racetrack tonight yet.
Yeah. Give it time. Give it time.
So, either way, All those drivers 5 seconds on their windows. It's going to be intriguing how that helps them out, because now they're going to be able to push on further. Do you think they might bank on a caution similar to what we just seen?
Nope, you can never bank on a caution, I think, especially when we just saw a huge green flag run. You always have to bet on this to go the rest of the way under green, I think.
Well, Trevor Malone just may have heard that and said, you know what, I'm coming down too either way. So at the very least, some of the drivers are thinking, let's top off, add some extra fuel here.
I'm looking at some of our YouTube comments. AJ Musselman, if they get another green run with pit stops, they make the danger zone 15+ laps for the leader.
That's why I think that might be a decent call. If you get the long run and then somebody makes a mistake on the pit entry, guess who cycles to the lead, similar to the fashion of Forsyth and Hearn? Those drivers.
That's a great idea, especially if they do have that. I mean, that's a 15 lap or so window where if there is a caution, there's only really one driver on the lead lap.
So this is all getting intriguing, and a few of our drivers have just picked up on this now to this time bias with the lights coming off. Clark has topped off a second time. Paul Jenkins sacrifices a position in the bottom half of the top 20 to come on in. So all the drivers who topped off who are now on a different cycle, Rodriguez, Wardlow, Jenkins, Clark, Malone, are all drivers who are banking on a longer run, adding some extra fuel in the tank. They are still about 10 laps out from the projected mark to end this race without a pit stop. So, in our words, strategy may be trying to hope it stretches long. Chris Fowler, Craig Forsyth, and Richie Hearn are 1, 2 to 3. See a bit of traffic also in the mix as well. Those are Mike and O'Brien right behind them. Green flag is out. 80 to go. And all that traffic is going to become a major buffer for the top 3. Nick DeGroot still has to deal with Mike's and O'Brien, who are fighting side by side right in front of him.
As we see the battle between Richie Hearn and Craig Forsyth continue to rage on. Now we go back a little bit farther back. And, again, they're all single file, trying to make moves. There's just no way to make a move without setting it up a few laps beforehand. I don't think that we will see many moves right off of a restart.
These are your 3 championship contenders in the standings so far, battling amongst this group in the Hornet's Nest. It's going to be a critical time for them, and now starting to fall lockstep with Sirwa, in fact, getting on board. This is Aaron Morgan, one of the Avatar auto racing machines, utilizing the bottom line. Looks like Taylor may have gotten a run to the outside there.
Look at all this mess right in front. A lot of cars, a lot of danger.
You definitely don't want to get yourself in trouble at this point. Let's put it that way. Outside line, ripping the lip just about along the safer barrier is Taylor. Now side by side with some of the various cars in the pack. Taylor makes another pass. Move Taylor up to the top 14. That's Guyon. He made the move on.
Matt Taylor going the very high line. I don't think this is going to be able to work for very long with all of these drivers running this close together. Something's got to give.
Question is, what will give in this heart of the pack?
Oh,
contact Taylor to the wall.
Saw the same thing right there. Matt Taylor has some right side impact. I don't know if there's any damage on that car, but he has a lot of speed, has to come off the throttle. Oh man, this is just a hairy situation.
It looks physically okay. He is stuck now with Chris Reagan and his damage though. Now to his outside, Taylor forced to change up his line. A little bit tight with a couple of the packs.
That just shows how hard it is to make a pass even with the slide job here. He's going to really attempt the slide job here, and he'll make it.
Trying to follow along behind is his championship rival, Mike Rasmus, able to clear on by. That is now for the 13th position. Still battling on behind them is Morgan and Lanini, who have to find a way to pass around Reagan, who is utilizing the top, now making near 3 wide. Morgan backs out of it. Lanini nearly makes contact.
Almost. We completely missed that. See that driver right up there, going slower than the rest of the pack? He was spun around, and that car was destroyed. He somehow, yeah, it's a Linus. He made it go from a 90-degree angle right back around the corner. We've got to take a look there. That was intense.
That's Ariel Lannis, who ended up getting contact from Mike Rickney's 00. Massive, massive save from Alanis in that situation as everyone else drives on by, and that breaks up that battle that just happened right behind him as well. Here's the contact. There goes the car. No damage for Rickney.
I have no idea how that car did not find its way into the wall.
Very magical hands, let's put it that way, to be able to hold on to that as we are now within that final fuel window. Any caution from here, drivers can make it if they top off on fuel. As we look at some of the other drivers in the midst of the pack, that's Rickney, who's trying to battle with Caleb Bensi, who's up 7 spots. All while Chris Fowler has ran away nearly 2 seconds at the front.
That is the largest gap for a leader in this race so far.
And it's growing. How about 19.3s for Chris Fowler? He's gone to the 19.2s within a 10th of the race record here.
I'll tell you what, the 17th, the battle for 17th is unbelievably good right now. Actually, yeah, it's for 17th.
Keep in mind, that's a mix of drivers who have topped off on fuel, who can push a little bit further. Plus, that's where Alanis cycled through after that car got back going. They're already more than a second behind Dustin Wardlow, though. That's the downside. They are losing ground to the rest of the pack by a few tenths with all this fighting.
And I believe Fowler is only around, 8-7 seconds behind these lapped cars?
Give or take, yes.
So that'll be interesting.
It's all going to be very intriguing here coming up towards the later stages of this race. And talked about the importance of the tire wear coming into play. When these cars get quicker, the more these tires wear out and the rubber build up. That's all now coming into play for these drivers, with some of these fights really starting to break out. Danny Roberts is now just up the road from Rickney. Matt Taylor is also reeling in Rickney as well.
Finally, we're seeing some side-by-side action, but I definitely think with it all calming down here, we're going to start to see that battle with traffic become a thing. Chris Reagan is going into pit lane, by the way.
So remember, he had damage for his car, but these drivers trying to make their way towards the end, coming up to 61 laps to go. This is the Fisch Motorsports Iowa 150 presented by Midwest Simulations. welcome back to RaceSpotTV and ESTV's coverage of the Lionheart Retro Series for the Fisch Motorsports Iowa 150 presented by Midwest Simulations on RaceSpotTV and ESTV. My name's Justin Prince, alongside me is Dylan Coyle with Arjuna Kankapati in the director's seat for what has been a very intriguing race so far. Strategy has been king, timing up the caution flags has been king, but right now, it's Chris Fowler who leads by a dominating 3.5 seconds, with several of the championship competitors marred in the middle of the pack.
It's been a weird night of racing where we have seen some little stretches with the fighting between these drivers being really intense, but it's just so hard to make a pass here at Iowa. Maybe a pass will be attempted right here. Not close enough. Going around the outside, will it work? But you see the bumps. It pushes you back up the track, and it makes you have to take it off the throttle a little bit.
Driver they're trying to attack, by the way, is Georgian Zotto. Rigney and Taylor are at the moment. As you can see, that top line's been also very efficient in 3 and 4 to be able to defend throughout the night. Keep this in mind, we are approaching 20 laps towards the potential for final pit stops for just about the entire field, except those who topped off on gas. But change that now. A big wreck down the back. Guyon, Lanini, several more bring us under yellow, and now this gets intriguing. All the drivers can make it on fuel from here.
This crash is a big one. Watch him lose control twice, almost saved it, and they just go throwing like a helicopter. Wow, so 4 cars, we'll have to see exactly who was involved here.
When he was in the wall, we're hearing before this as he snaps it around. That bobble collects several cars with some heavy contact. Our biggest wreck of the night so far in terms of impacts. Trevor Malone was that 3rd car collected in that. He was one of the drivers who did not need the caution that time. He needed it later, as well as to not get involved in that.
Dustin Wardlow was involved in that too, and he has some pretty major damage, I think, too.
And for Wardlow, keep in mind, it was a great situation speed-wise for him, and yep, that is significant front wing damage. He immediately pulls off towards the bottom of the racetrack after that contact. But the rest of the field now makes its way down the pit lane. This can allow the drivers to make it to the end, but we have a couple drivers staying out here this time. Paul Jenkins, DJ Clark, David Rodriguez, all staying out this time. Everybody else in.
Wow. All right, so this is a unique situation, I feel like, where you basically always want to do, in my opinion, what the leader does. But if you're the leader, you will be caught out to dry if you decide not to go into the pits.
Do you think they're banking on more yellow flags and trying to save enough fuel to make it to the end? It's a tough ask, though, either way. That was a 10-lap difference, even with the top-offs?
Fowler's heading down pit lane right now.
He is on racetrack, actually. You see right there. But either way, this is an interesting call from Jenkins, Clark, and Rodriguez, Dylan, to stay out here at this point. Everybody else staying out. Or coming in for service, I should rather say.
Yeah, I got my replays mixed up with my live action, but I agree with that. I don't know about staying out. I think the best call would have been to go in, but I guess he feels like he has enough fuel to last the entire way, or he thinks there's going to be more cautions.
I mean, this is a big gamble for Jenkins, Clark, and Rodriguez. Rodriguez has had track position in this race before, but he lost that track position with the caution flags. But it's Jenkins and Clark who are the wild cards in all this. Jenkins has had some ups and downs throughout Lionheart competition this year, and DJ Clark has shuffled from full-time to part-time to back and forth throughout the campaign in the various series as well.
This is going to lead to a really interesting finish to this race. I mean, 47 to go, it's going to go like that. When we're under green flag racing, 3 laps basically is a minute long, so we can go 15 more minutes and the race is over.
Think about it that way. That is going to be interesting on how this plays out. Again, it's Chris Fowler who's the first of the drivers who pitfall by Forsyth, Hearn, DeGroot, Snyder. Sirwall is up inside the top 10 again, and Zoldo rounds out the top 10 for the upcoming restart here. And to emphasize how wild this would be if someone, say, DJ Clark, was able to make this work. He has DNF 5 times, just once he's finished in the top 5, and that was at Homestead. And he was ecstatic at that time, the well-known GSRC commentator. His best finish since that 3rd place had been a 14th at Twin Ring Motegi, where that was still a DNF. He only made 53 laps.
Wow. That's still amazing. Can we not bring up Twin Ring Motegi ever again?
Apologies for the bad memories.
Oh, the bad memories indeed. I feel like that's going to be the race that everybody remembers, kind of going through this series history as the probably the weirdest race that we've ever seen.
Do you see another track seeing drivers go 5-6 wide for the lead?
Never.
Do you see people still trying it, though?
Yes.
By the way, we are down to 44 to go this time by. Jenkins, your race leader, with the lights off the iRacing pace truck in what has been a strategy-filled race for the Fisch Motorsports Iowa 150 presented by Midwest Simulations. Pace truck is off. And a slow roll this time for Jenkins. Latest jump out of the race leader all night. Off and away we go. And now it becomes a massive jump of half a second overall once he got rolling, we'll say, over DJ Clark and David Rodriguez. The rest of the pack 3-4 tenths behind.
I mean, this is a huge lead right there. David Rodriguez was almost trying to slide job from way back there and almost got into the back of DJ Clark. This is some good racing, though. Rodriguez, I think, has a bit of a run, has a faster car right now, and he is wasting no time to try and go down DJ Clark. They almost come together.
A little bit too aggressive, nearly into the side pod of DJ Clark. Rodriguez nearly loses all his momentum as a result of that. Take a look at the heart of the pack, and another caution. Upside down, it's Mike Rigney, who brings us under yellow once more. That will help the top 3 a little bit on the fuel mileage.
Not only the fuel mileage, but the more laps that this race has run under caution, the easier it's going to be to hold your position with how hard it is to pass at this track. By the way, 10 out of 10.
And these drivers touched before. This is the Lannis that gets in the back of for a second time this race. Well, that conversation's going to be interesting after the race.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. You know what? Definitely had to come out of the throttle there, and I think that's what led to the contact. But just needs to have a little bit more awareness. We'll catch from this view. It's going to be the best view here. We watch as... No, he didn't even get out of the throttle. Not at all. So my mistake there. I think he was just going for a hole that didn't exist.
There's a quote somewhere on that. I'm just trying to remember the exact one.
If you no longer go for a gap that doesn't exist, you are no longer a race driver.
Same time, if you want to keep your car in one piece, time out the right moments to go through the holes.
Just a bit.
So we're under 40 laps to go, and this definitely helps Jenkins, Clark, and Rodriguez to emphasize this. Because this saves them about 4 or 5 laps that they wouldn't be running under green. Again.
I think that everyone is good to go on fuel at this point. But again, I don't want to talk about fuel. That brings up bad memories for me.
Wait, how does that bring up bad memories?
Oh, goodness. Do I have to explain? Championship race on Monday in the IROC Real Sim Racing Series. I was in position to win until I miscalculated my fuel and ran out with a lap to go. Uh-huh.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
That's a way to lose a championship in a race.
Uh-huh. I am still not over it.
The championship leader entering tonight, Matt Taylor, by the way, is in 11th position here. What do you think he's thinking right now? This would be one of his lower finishes of the season if he was to stick here.
Well, it's not something that's going to play out well if he wants to get into this championship hunt more than he is already. I think that with Matt Taylor, Mike Rasmussen, Aaron Morgan all running real close together, it's going to basically nullify any advancement or losses that any of the drivers can face.
That's a good point with all of them grouped together. Keep in mind, Taylor's worst finish of the season was a 29th at Phillip Island. That was a DNF where he only made it one lap. For Mike Rasmussen, the worst finish of the season, 24th, Mosport, after starting in 2nd position. That respective event. But the lights are still on top of the iRacing pace truck. Intriguingness continues for Paul Jenkins, who may have rolled the strategy dice if this plays out well with DJ Clark behind. Have to wonder what Paul Jenkins may feel if he's able to hold on here. This is going to be the tough part, getting the job done to the leader. If you're any of these cars now, let alone the driver staying out to try and shuffle for that lead.
I mean, this would be awesome for him. 40 races, 41st race, has never won at all. This would be a huge marker for him.
48th race. Check that on that mark.
Well, you know what? I saw 40. That's 40 laps led coming into this race. So
yes,
he's doing a lot more of that in this one.
Continues to lead as the lights are on top, or off on top of the iRacing pace truck, I should say, as you can see the shorter distance, too, that they are trying to save hard. Rodriguez has a couple lap difference compared to the other cars. Keep that in mind as the others have that opportunity to try and burn a bit of fuel, have a little bit of a lighter car to try and compensate. Coming up to 36 to go, it's Jenkins, Clark, Rodriguez, Fowler, Forsythe. Top 5. Richie Hearn has been shuffled to 6th. The Groot, Snyder, Sirwa, and Anzaldo are your top 10.
What do you think is going to happen here?
A lot of things.
That is accurate to a fault.
I'm very intrigued to see what can happen if these drivers for sure can make it on gas with how this race is playing out. Paul Jenkins hits the gas off and away, and second on back, caught sleeping.
That's exactly what you want to have happen if you are Paul Jenkins.
Gap already has been reduced down to 3/10. Through turns 3 and 4. Now it's the matter of, can Jenkins hold on to that clean air? That's been so vital all night. It's been difficult to build up a run, let alone pass the race leader. And now it's the true test for DJ Clark and David Rodriguez, as well as for the drivers who are for sure good to go on gas. Fowler, Forsythe and company. Here's the view from Jenkins and company as you see them try and run the various lines.
35 laps to go. There is not that much time left in this race. David Rodriguez is sliding up. He really likes that slide job. That's going to be hard to get done, though, unless you are right on the gearbox.
Actually had to crack the throttle that time in the corner exit. Rodriguez did. He loses a little bit of ground. Fowler is still 9/10 behind, and your championship rivals are now trying to break into the top 10. That's Taylor using the outside line to move up to 10th. Rasmus is up to 11th. Here comes Taylor to battle Anzaldo from the bottom line this time, ripping it away. And a checkup from Anzaldo as he shuffles to the bottom.
That's a little bit naughty from Matt Taylor right there. Anzaldo is going to challenge him, go down to the inside, but I think he caught the apron, wasn't able to get a good run. Did Taylor touch the wall again? I think he did.
Gotta be careful on that, and Mike Rasmus is now trying to get the job done on the bottom line. And it's starting to get pretty difficult now after these first few laps of this run to get the pass done. Mike Rasmus can't get the run he's looking for, and Anzaldo up in front of him. Taylor nearly knocked the wall down again, trying to get a run on Snyder.
So Matt Taylor is the only one running that high line. I think if you are Mike Razmas right now, you've got to try and replicate exactly what he's doing.
There it is right there. Finally able to get side by side with Snyder. That's the line he's been trying to make work for a few laps. Can he get it fully done is the question. Down the front straight away, yes. Next driver up. He is slicing and dicing indeed. DeGroot is the next driver. He looks to slice and dice.
He is really a man on fire right now. Always going to go down the inside. A slide job maneuver. It's going to work, but how quick will he have to get out of the throttle? I mean, Matt Taylor just made up multiple positions quicker than anyone else has in this race. And this is going to, if it stays like this, extend his championship lead.
Exactly what he's looking for, to be able to build up that buffer against his rivals. Meanwhile, Jenkins, he's still holding on to about a 3 to 4 tenths of a second buffer to DJ Clark, who's looking for his best finish of the season. Rodriguez, in his second start, is still right behind him as well, and they have started to build a buffer by a tenth a lap plus over Fowler and company on pace. Don't forget, the lower the fuel, the faster they go doing it. It's showcased right now.
By the way, Trevor Malone is back out on track, and he is really slowing everybody down in the back of the pack right now, just trying to get some laps. I wonder how much this could affect some of these battles.
Did affect Jenkins just a touch bit. Should be worth noting when he lapped on by. Malone's already been lapped by just about the entire pack. Trevor Malone running 19th position. But 24 to go this time by. The top three separated by 7 tenths. And now the true test for some of these drivers will be, can they make moves like Taylor has been? Or will it get a bit dicey like this is getting, with Rasmus getting around 2 drivers?
Just an unbelievable battle, and this is all about the championship. We'll see Aaron Morgan swapping positions with Nick DeGroot.
That rang true. You see that there. Morgan hit a bump, though, through turn 2, slows him up. The factory back driver able to defend well in DeGroot. Of note, Trevor Malone has made his way to the pit lane as Morgan nearly sawed off the rear wing of DeGroot, making that move. Morgan clears on by, but that was not easy.
If my research is correct, nobody in the top 6 has ever won a race in the Retro Series.
That's an incredible statistic. And keep in mind, strategy has gotten a lot of into play because it was David Sirwall who was the dominant driver early. Now David Sirwall is trying to mix it up with Robert Mikes for 13th.
Oh, he really got into the bumps right there on the low side. Almost got to the back left tire. Had to come out of the throttle a lot right there, and he's going to lose a ton of ground.
Under 20 laps to go this time by. Robert Mike's able to defend it. Still Jenkins now growing the advantage to half a second. Let's see. Plus 10 overall for the race for Jenkins. Would be a huge moment for Aero X Racing in this season. Of course, the question remains, can he for sure make it on the gas? It'd be 82 laps with the caution laps included he'd have to make.
That would be impressive, and I think he'd be able to do it because of those cautions.
He's in a good position indeed, but the true test will be the final few laps of this race. Rodriguez, who has a 2-lap longer stint, is still trying to utilize the bottom line, cannot find a way around DJ Clark.
Oh, but he's going to go around the outside and swoop all the way down. Is he going to get a run? It almost looked like he lost some time there.
Yeah,
you got to fully commit. You got to fully commit to these lines here around the corners.
We've seen how close he's been a couple times with contact. Jenkins is starting to weave a little bit, I've noticed, down the straightaways. Trying to break up a touch bit of draft, possibly. Just staying a little bit away from the wall. Behind him, Matt Taylor. on the prowl. Move Taylor up to 6th. That's Richie Hearn he passed.
Matt Taylor was, I wouldn't say dead in the water, but he was nowhere close to this competition. Now Taylor is really moving his way through the field.
And did you just see that time up on the top board? That is a new race record just set by Robert Mikes. That time by, it's a 19.135. That is your new race record for Iowa Speedway for this series. Incredible. Also incredible, Chris Fowler's closed in.
Well, well, well. Competition we have in the waiting laps of this race.
Fowler find his way on the podium here with the different drivers on strategies in front. He's trying to utilize the bottom line compared to the middle lines of Rodriguez and Clark. Drivers having to lift a little bit, I've noticed now, with some of these bumps in the corners compared to the near full throttle from earlier.
Rodriguez had to lift a lot right there. Oh, he's getting really tight. He's got to choose a different line because he's not going to be able to get by DJ Clark fully here.
Top 4 separated by 1 second as the bumps really hurting these cars in 1 and 2 now. 10 to go. This time by, it's Paul Jenkins trying to hold on with the strategy gamble. He, Clark, and Rodriguez are still the quickest cars in the racetrack. Oh, no, Matt Taylor also just put up a 19.177, though, in 6th position.
Something to note, Chris Reagan is off in the not-so-far distance from these leaders, so could his dirty air come into effect?
The timing of it could be within the final 4 laps or so at the pace they're running, possibly. Have to wait and see. Clark continuing to try and chip away, chip away. He's built up the buffer now to Rodriguez after that fight a little while ago. Is he going to be able to close up enough with the aero wash? He's trying the different lines. Jenkins takes away his clean air in the corner.
Matt Taylor is trying to make a move on Craig Forsyth for 5th place, by the way. Taylor, if something happens with these leaders, he is right back into the conversation here.
And he is the quickest car on the racetrack, even quicker than the race leaders. It's going to be close. Taylor has closed up a couple seconds in the past 10, but with 6 to go, he'll need to find a way to close up 1.2 seconds and pass by these 3.
I think he's about to get into 4th place by next lap.
Isaac Snyder, new track record.
Uh-oh.
19.133, side by side for 2nd. Clark allows Rodriguez to the high side. David Rodriguez now going for the move. Near contact. Rodriguez tries to clear through 3. Clark tries to fight low in the bottom. Rodriguez rips away 2nd.
David Rodriguez finally going the high side, trying there. He has been out the longest of all the drivers. He just touches the apron, but he has a bunch of momentum. Will Jenkins have to worry about David Rodriguez? Potentially, yes.
Rodriguez in his 2nd career start of the Retro Series this season. Only has a couple laps to try and work with. 3 to go, that time by. How can Rodriguez get the job done? And they have reached Chris Reagan's dirty air.
Taylor is in 4th, by the way.
Matt Taylor still 1.2 seconds back, though. 2 laps to go that time by. Rodriguez still 3-4 car lengths back. Jenkins now swerves the bomb. Jenkins can't make it! Jenkins can't make it on gas! He has to pit coming to the white flag. David Rodriguez takes the lead.
Well, if Jenkins can't make it, how is Rodriguez going to make it?
This would be one of the
Clark
biggest...
is out.
DJ Clark is out from the 2nd spot. Final corner for Rodriguez. Rodriguez will do it. David Rodriguez, welcome to Lionheart Victory Lane. He wins the Fisch Motors Iowa 150 presented by Midwest Simulations in just his 2nd start.
What A wild finish to that race, and I just have to say, that was the comeback drive for Matt Taylor of a true potential champion.
And that draft was huge for Rodriguez. You have to think, remember, third in that line, and that may have been the difference, even with the lap differential for the rest of the competitors who were pushing full out. And we seen just enough to make it to the end and even celebrate with burnouts.
Well, he had the draft the entire time.
Absolutely incredible and very smart. Second start of the season is the charm for David Rodriguez, your winner in the Lionheart Retro Series, presented by Sim Experience. Let's take a look at your race results, presented by Carnage. RSR Esport and David Rodriguez, welcome to Lionheart Victory Lane. They win by almost a second, with Matt Taylor driving his way to second to the checkered flag in remarkable fashion. Yet he started outside the top 10 on the final restart. Chris Fowler finishes in third, with Craig Forsyth and Richie Hearn the top 5. George Anzotto, Mike Rasmus, Aaron Morgan, Robert Mikes, David Sirwa round out your top 10 of note. Plus 21 for Hearn, plus 20 for Forsyth. Behind them in the running order, just outside the top 10, Michael O'Brien. DJ Clark does still salvage a 12th place finish. As for fuel, it may have been a career finish on the season for Clark. Nick DeGroot finishes behind them in 13th. Betsy Roberts, Alanis, 14th and 16th. Paul Jenkins, one lap down, had to pit, coming to the white flag. He finishes one lap down. Snyder, Reagan, Malone, the top 20. Mike Rigney ends up flipping upside down for a caution flag. He finishes 21st. Dustin Wardlow involved in a big incident, electing Alex Gouillon as well in said incident. Chris Lanini was also involved in the wreck. 22nd to 24th is where they finished. The first caution of the race was Cody Wenson for his pit stint, while Ron Hacker had an early snap to this race. That's look top to bottom at your running order. And by the way, that race lap is a new track record on 19 flat from Aaron Morgan. That brings us to our HyperX post-race show. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX. Features premier gaming gear like luxury, ultra-comfortable cloud-lined gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit HyperXGaming.com, and don't forget to use the promo code LionHRT15 for 15% off orders. The on-screen race replay. This is what happened to Isaac Snyder in the closing stages you're doing.
Wow, I didn't even notice that happening, but there was so much that was happening at the very end of the race that it was just hard to pick up on that. And you know what? Just some great strategies. It just did not work out.
Could have been the caution flag that could have been banked on. As that brings us straight to HyperX Victory Lane. David, start number 2, and you come away with the big victory. How does it feel?
It feels awesome. I honestly couldn't believe it with the way our race was going at the beginning.
And talk us through the strategy call, because you had track position early. The caution flag mixed things up, but you end up electing to top off.
Yeah, so when the caution came out, we had pitted, and we had pitted, and we ended up like in the back, and then we decided to pit and get extra fuel, and then we just saved a bunch through the run. Sorry about that, I just got added. You
could hear some of the teammate reaction, I think the backdrop there, but your second start ends like this. You had good position to start off in New Hampshire before some troubles. Tonight, you come over with the checkered. Were you expecting something like this early in your Lionheart Retro Series career?
Honestly, I was not. I thought we would get, with the way I qualified, I thought I was expecting, a top 10 finish, but I did not expect for us to win on my second start.
Congratulations once again on the victory, David.
Thank you.
David Rodriguez, Your winner in the Lionheart Retro Series in impressive fashion. Matt Taylor was closing in quickly right before the checkered flag. Matt, talk us through that closing run, because you were the quickest car on the racetrack in terms of average pace and sliced and diced your way from 11th to 2nd.
Yeah, that was, I was genuinely thrilled to even be sitting around 6th or 7th, and I was able to just keep picking people off. And as those guys backed up in the front saving fuel, running that high line and really being able to hook it and carry the speed was just huge, because it seemed like nobody else was able to do that. And I got buried in the field on that first caution, and to drive up through there, this may as well be a win as far as I'm concerned. I'm so happy with that drive.
It was an impressive drive indeed, and of course it was difficult to try and make moves throughout the night, it seemed, but you were one of the few who was able to execute passes on multiple lines, in fact.
Yeah, it was just kind of watching the guys in front, whether it was the guy immediately in front, or if there was a gap of clean air, or if there was 2 or 3 guys, and really just studying their lines and trying to find where the clean air was going to be, because the idea was that you drive in and you carry that draft speed down the straightaway, and either you cut down early and try to catch the clean air to close up the gap, or you carry that into the corner on the high side to where you can try and get a nose alongside of them to maybe get that spotter call, so they have to give that lane. And it requires a lot of give and take too, which thankfully everybody raced really clean, so that helped a lot.
Now the next race caps off the stretch of 3 straight short tracks. It is Worldwide Technology Raceway, also known as Gateway, and that's expected to be an intriguing one as well. What will your approach be like for that race, knowing you've gained a lot of momentum these past few races, championship fight, and a chance to give yourself a great position for the final few months with a strong run?
Yeah, I think the real goal or the challenge is to do the same thing I've done tonight and the other weeks, is really just kind of survive the first half or so of that race, and then let it maybe come to me as much as I can, or find an advantage out there. Gateway last season was pretty tight, so limiting those mistakes, and we could see a little bit of a New Hampshire style race. It should be interesting to see if there's setup changes or what that ends up looking like.
Congratulations to the run, Matt.
Thank you.
Matt Taylor, 2nd place, started in 7th. Very impressive run from the championship leader entering tonight. Chris Fowler started in 3rd and finished in 3rd. He did lead laps, however. Looked to be in a strong position after the first caution flag, Chris. That caution really helped get you some very solid position the rest of the way.
Yeah, it did. I was not expecting that. I tried to stay out as long as possible, save some fuel on that first stint. And then on that first stop, I actually took a gallon less of fuel to try to just gain track position, because track position is key with this race. So I just tried to take a little extra less and get out in front. And we had that caution. I was like, how'd I get in front? It's like, okay, I'll take that. But that was crazy. I mean, I've never been so disappointed with the 3rd in my life. I keep being in the lead. I keep leading laps and getting out front, and I just can't bring home that win. It's getting more frustrating and disappointing at every race. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's been intriguing to watch, especially in the multiple different series, with how close you've been a couple times. Some of these recent events. What will it take?
We're getting better. Yeah, we're getting better each race and getting up front, competing where I think I have the pace to be up there. I just got to bring it home.
Now the next race, Worldwide Technology Raceway, what would it take to bring it on home there and keep up the momentum you've been building?
I just got to put in the hard work, get with the teams, put in a lot of laps, figure out the strategy we need to try to get up front. I think Gateway is kind of the same as Iowa. It's going to be kind of a long race, hard to pass, but we'll just have to figure it out and try to find ways for strategy to get that track position and see if we can't bring home a win, get some laps, get a podium. I mean, today was a great points day, so we're going to take that momentum and keep on going.
Great points day indeed. Congratulations, Chris.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank Chris Fowler, Matt Taylor, and David Rodriguez for taking the time to speak with us during post-race coverage during the HyperX post-race show. As we take a look at your upcoming schedule, as talked about, next up, Worldwide Technology Raceway, Dylan, capping off a stretch of short tracks, and then it's big tracks galore to close it out.
This is going to be an unbelievable stretch to the finish of the season. Gateway will be remarkably fun, and I think it's going to be a lot different than what we just saw at Iowa. The draft is going to play a huge part. Michigan, that's obvious there. Then we have the road courses. They're going to be fun. Auto Club will be a fantastic finale.
It's going to be an exciting finish to the season. The question is, how will the drivers fare out, especially with that stretch of road courses right before that finale as well? It's going to be exciting, to say the very least. I'd like to take the time to thank the many sponsors who are a part of the Lionheart Racing Series, as well as the Lionheart Retro Series, including Sim Experience. The Sim Experience AccuForce Pro V2 is the premier professional simulation racing steering system. V2's incredible realism is the groundbreaking direct drive motor control system, providing a driving experience that's second only to the real thing. For more information on the entire Sim Experience ecosystem, visit simexperience.com. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com. Use the promo code LionHRT15 for 15% off orders. For sim racers, the Butt Kicker Gamer 2 or Simulation Kit adds the missing driver-to-car connection. More realism to your sessions. By accurately responding to in-game audio, you can feel the track like never before, providing increased vehicle handling and faster lap times. Are you ready for the most immersive experience in sim racing? For more information, visit thebuttkicker.com and don't forget to use the promo code LION2021 for 20% off orders. Minus 273 is the premier name in karting gloves. Wing gloves are super lightweight and durable, made of breathable like spandex. Whether you're a kart or sim racer, Minus 273 gives you the control to reach free length. For more information on Minus 273's full line of gloves and apparel, visit minus273.biz. Don't forget to also use Minus 273 LHRS 15% off orders. Looking for entertaining sim racing content? Look no further than the DMLC Racing Channel. Follow former Lionheart Retro Series Driver of the Year Mark Cohen's racing escapades as he battles for wins and avoids wrecks with cat-like reflexes, all while providing commentary sure to make you laugh, cry, or both. Along by subscribing to the DMLC Racing Channel on YouTube, Facebook page at the DMLC Racing Channel. And it's not just those names, but so many more, and all the partners at the Lionheart Racing Series help bring the action you see throughout its sanctioning bodies. To learn more about them, visit LionheartRacingSeries.com. You can also find out more information on the 3 competitions Lionheart sanctioned body runs. Lots more Lionheart competition is to come. To follow along with the action, be sure to keep up with Lionheart on social media at Lionheart Series on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. ESTV has all your esports needs, while RaceSpot has your V Motorsports action covered. Be sure to follow along on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and more. Be sure to hit the YouTube subscribe button as well and the notification bell to keep up with all the sim racing action we get to cover. The next time the Lionheart Racing Series goes racing is for the HyperX 200 at Chicago for the Lionheart Speedway Series presented by the DMLC Racing Channel. That takes place August 23rd at 10:35 p.m. Eastern Time, 7:35 p.m. Pacific. As well, the IndyCar Series heads to the track for the Thunder Down Under at Phillip Island. That will take place this upcoming Wednesday. Once again, catch that at 10:35 p.m. Eastern Time, 7:35 Pacific. But with that, it's time to say goodbye. For Istvan Balu, for Arjuna Kankipati, for Dylan Coyle, I'm Justin Prince. Thank you for watching RaceSpotTV and ESTV's coverage of tonight's action. Congratulations to David Rodriguez, your winner from Iowa.